What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL Podcast. I'm Brinson. I'm your host, and it is, if you are watching live on YouTube, Friday, March 11th. If you're listening to the podcast in audio form, it is likely Monday because it's a Mailbag Monday. Excuse me. It's a
Mailbag
Monday. That's right. FYI. If you leave a 5-star review on a future if you leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcast and include a question, we will answer it on a future Mailbag podcast. Next week, programming note, we will not be live at 1 p.m. because we will be live at 4 p.m. Monday through Thursday on YouTube for free agency recaps. That's right. Every day, Monday through Thursday, 4 p.m. live on the YouTubes. You can check us out. Come hang with us. We can chat about all the various things that are happening around the NFL. It's going to be pandemonium. If the past week was any inclination.
Possibility for emergency pods, but I'm not sure that we'll get the same level of emergency pods next week as we did this week. It's going to take...
Yeah, but what if Kirk Cousins get traded? Is that emergency?
Emergency.
There is... I think.
What if the Saints sign Gardner Minshew?
By the way, joining me to answer the questions, which I was about to say before Debo so rudely interrupted me. Ryan Wilson and John Breech. What's up, boys?
What if Andy Dalton retires?
Emergency.
Then I'll be hosting by myself with Debo.
What if Deshaun Watson gets traded to the Seahawks?
Emergency.
What if Carson Wentz retires? How awesome would that be? That's a definite emergency podcast.
Oh, yeah.
What if Wentz and Dalton retire on the same day within 10 minutes of each other? Who do we do first?
The Super Bowl winner.
Oh, hey.
Oh, up high, down hard. Oddly enough,
one.
Andy Dalton and Carson Wentz have the same number of playoff wins.
Whoa! Oh! What a big jam! Wallace took it in his hands and said, up and away, Dixie-doo, Dunkaroo.
Really, the holding the dunks early today. You can tell what kind of day it's going to be.
It is the ACC tournament.
What's that?
It is the ACC tournament.
It is
March Madness. Brinson is dunking everywhere, so get used to it.
This March actually is going to be total and absolute chaos. I was just actually looking to see if I was supposed to do a bracket read, but I guess not. You know what? By the way, so Khalil Mack got traded from the Bears to the Chargers. That was like about as borderline an emergency pod as it could get. Like
we've done worse.
I was like,
we've done much worse in terms of the emergency pod arena. That's a pretty big story. I was sort of surprised we didn't ring the bell.
Yeah, I was, it's like one of those where you text, you like text your group chat. You're like, oh, check this out, this news. And that usually rises to the level of emergency pod, but I wasn't going to.
Debo probably had plans last night. He didn't want to get.
Sometimes Debo and I have sort of an unspoken, let's just let that one slide. Right, Debo? All right.
Yeah, I mean, that was a definite, I think, should have gone up. Ben Simmons returning to Philadelphia, big Thursday night. Resulted in us talking about it on this mailbag.
That's right.
Wait, who returned to Philadelphia?
Ben Simmons. Don't worry about it.
I thought he was making a Benson joke. Then the Philadelphia thing threw me.
No. Ben Simmons.
Benson returning to Philadelphia is much
traded. Ben Simmons was traded for James Harden and then came back to Philadelphia. Ben Simmons is like, what's the football equivalent?
Carson Wentz.
JJ Arcega-Whiteside.
Oh.
No, Carson Wentz is a good comp. Carson Wentz coming back to Philly on his third team. Not quite as good as Simmons coming back, but what would you say, Debo? What's the comp here?
I mean, Philadelphia fans would put him in the same category. I disagree with both, but
what about when?
What do you mean? You disagree with
just
what?
The hatred around them and the narrative that Simmons is a much better player than Carson Wentz, but they're both kind of, because of some of their flaws, I think, heavy in the social media haha, laugh, joke category.
It sounds like they're basically the same player.
Here's what I've learned from working with Debo.
I mean, is Ben Simmons good?
He's incredibly loyal to people on his team. That includes Will Brinson, by the way. And if you're not on his team, that he probably hates you, like the Cowboys and the football team, whatever they're calling themselves, and the Giants when they used to be good. So even when you get fired, Brinson, Debo will still have your back.
Sorry, I'm trying to listen. My son is screaming about something downstairs.
Dad of the year.
Well,
He's,
no,
he's
actually,
watching this live and he can't believe your takes on Debo and Ben Simmons.
No, he's playing Mega Man Powered Up on. Probably shouldn't. Anyway, I helped facilitate this throwback game that is difficult to play for him via some technological wizardry. And,
Here's my takeaway from that, Breech. It's 1 p.m. on a Friday, and Brinson's son isn't in school.
Yeah, they had early release today.
Yeah, is that what they call it?
Early release. That's
Truancy.
where Mrs. Brinson's out of town and Robbie didn't want to go to school. And Brinson's like, all right, you play Nintendo Switch all day, man.
Sure. I'm just looking. I mean, like, I don't know. I'm not sure that Ben Simmons is that good of a player, is what I'm getting at. Now, look, he's not washed and old like Carson Wentz. He's just 24. Sure, he can't shoot the ball. But other than that, did he ever make a three?
I can assure you, no one listening to this wants to hear you talk about Ben Simmons or me. You can listen to my other podcast for that.
All right, well, let's talk about the Bears and Chargers trade of Khalil Mack, which, again, somebody tweeted us at like a question for the mailbag. Grade the trade. I think it's I'll give it my grade for it. I'll give it the Chargers an A- and the Bears a B-. And it's sort of hard to grade, I think, because like for the Chargers, you now have, if Khalil Mack can play 60 or 17 games, you have an unbelievable combo of pass rushers with Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. If somebody just came into my office, I don't know if it was Robbie or AK. If you have, if it works out, it's a great deal. And you gave up a 2nd-round pick and a 6th-round pick for him. It wasn't that expensive to pull off. If you're for the Bears, I think the concern is that, you are blowing things up now. And Ryan Poles, the new GM, who replaced Ryan Pace, clearly thinks that this is a full-blown rebuild if he's dumping Khalil Mack at this point of things, right?
No. They have Justin Fields. Khalil Mack didn't do anything last year. So you're getting some draft picks in return. He didn't play a lot. So I don't think you're admitting anything. He wasn't the cornerstone of that team getting over the hump last year. So I think you're right about the A-, and the B- I'll go along with as well. But I don't think that Ryan Poles is admitting defeat because they have their franchise quarterback.
It's not admitting defeat. It's just like, look, Khalil Mack's expensive and old, and
okay, well,
so let's
that's not a restart then, because that's what you just called it, right?
I mean,
I do think if you grade the trade in the context, like if Ryan Pace had made this trade, you think it's a C- because he gave up these 1st-round picks to get Khalil Mack, and now he's giving away for free. But now it feels like Ryan Poles is cleaning house and trying to put his mark on the team and saying, hey, look, Khalil Mack has 3 years and $60-something million left on his contract, and that's not going to help me build the team I want to build. So you dump him. You get anything you can in return. I mean, being able to dump that salary, get that off your books, I think is a huge deal for the Bears. It's nice that you get a 2nd-round pick in return, and I guess, a 6th-rounder's thrown in too. So I don't think you can crush the Bears for it just because, like you said, Wilson, Khalil Mack was injured last year. He missed 10 games. So I don't think you can kill the Bears for getting a huge contract off their books when you have a new coach and a new general manager who kind of both trying to move forward and build their own thing. Yeah, that's right. And so now they have the 39th pick and the 48th pick. They had to trade up, of course, to get Justin Fields, which would have given them the 7th pick this year. Ouch. Although you'd rather have Justin Fields than whatever quarterback's coming out here. But the offensive line has to be the primary concern, and they can do that at 39 and 48. And, shore up the defense. I don't even know who the new defensive coordinator is going to be, but I don't have any issue with the deal if you're Ryan Poles, and I love the deal if you're Brandon Staley because, I love everything Brandon Staley does. Yeah, you really do. My point was more like, I don't think that I'm just I think Ryan Poles is acknowledging that the Bears are in rebuild mode around Justin Fields. Dude, they don't have any. How many? They would be in rebuild mode with or without this trade, then is what you're saying. Yeah. I mean, how many? I mean, like, how many total, like, I don't want to say blue chip per se, but like, how many attractive foundational pieces do the Bears have on their roster? Well, that's a different conversation because we were talking about the trade, and I don't think Khalil Mack is going to make a difference one way or the other how this Bears team plays next year. They have Justin Fields, and that's about it. And that's when you got up, Brinson. Me and Wilson agreed that the biggest thing for the Bears here is that you got a new general manager, a new head coach, and you're getting a contract that's worth more than $60 million off your books. And now you can build the team you want going forward because you got rid of Khalil Mack. Is it a downgrade on the defense? Sure. But I think overall, long term, it makes sense for Chicago.
Yeah. I mean, like, I guess my point is that Ryan Poles has to have said, like, you don't take this job and be like, yeah, we can win the NFC North this year. Like, you don't take this job and say that. You take this job and you say, look, I think, Well,
real quick, but don't you think maybe back when he took this job, he's like, if Aaron Rodgers doesn't come back, we might be able to win the NFC North this year.
Yeah,
that's probably their initial thinking.
I mean, maybe. Like, I like the idea of accumulating draft picks. And Khalil Mack has a massive 3-year contract left on the books, and you got rid of it and you sent it to the Chargers. I like that idea. I think that's smart work. But I look at this team, and I mean, there's like maybe 4 good players on the roster. Like,
no, they're more than that. Cole Kmet, Justin Fields, David Montgomery. They have Jalen Johnson, Robert Quinn.
I mean, David Montgomery and Cole Kmet. That's what we do.
Roquan Smith. We have young players.
I'll give you Jalen Johnson, Roquan Smith.
Players.
Eddie Jackson played poorly last year, but he's played well at times.
You know, they don't have Tariq Cohen. Boom.
Andy Dalton. You didn't bring that one up first, dum-dum?
Well, Brinson, you guys already said Justin Fields.
There's just a ton of free agents. I mean, Cole Kmet and David Montgomery, if you want to force them in there, like, I don't think
they're young guys. But Breech's point is, I think that if there's no Aaron Rodgers,
not good.
There's no Aaron Rodgers, this division's wide open. I think that's the overarching point. And I don't know who I'm taking if there's no Aaron Rodgers, who I'm picking in this division.
I mean, Minnesota's the easy favorite if no Aaron Rodgers.
Kirk Cousins is terrible.
Dude, why this Bears roster is horrific, man.
Yeah, but they have a new coach, they have a new GM.
Well, let me ask you this,
Brinson.
Brinson.
That matter? It's still a bad roster.
Okay, let's say this Bears roster is horrific. Who is the 7th best team in the NFC?
7th best team in the NFC?
The 7th best team in the NFC.
I mean, who is your 7th best team in the NFC? Because clearly
it's the Bears.
I saw.
Well, my point is that horrific might be good enough to get in the playoffs because there's 7 spots and there's like only 5 good quarterbacks. Matt Ryan's the 5th or 6th best quarterback in the entire conference. So
I saw a friend of the podcast, Grant Paulson, who does a great radio host in 106.7 The Fan of DC, tweeted out that and I when I saw it, I was like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever read. But then I looked at it and I was like, maybe it's not that far off. Carson Wentz might be the 7th best quarterback in the NFC.
And just so we're clear, Grant is a huge Kirk Cousins supporter.
Yes.
Huge. Bigger than anyone in Kirk Cousins' family.
Well, would you take Jalen Hurts or Carson Wentz? I mean, I would take Jalen Hurts over Carson Wentz.
Over Carson Wentz,
Jalen Hurts or Justin Fields?
But that's the
Justin
question.
Fields or Carson Wentz?
No one's taking Carson Wentz except Debo.
just before we get any further, Ryan, can you let the people know where you have Carson Wentz on your list of NFC quarterbacks? I think it's somewhere between like 30 and 39.
It's right behind Geno Smith, whoever that is. So somewhere between 3, because Geno's number 2.
All right, Drew Lock or Carson Wentz? Or did we already cover that?
Oh, well, let me ask you this. Jared Goff or Carson Wentz?
Jared Goff.
I would take,
because if you have Jared Goff, that knocks Wentz to 8th. I think Cousins and Matt Ryan are 5th and 6th. Then you put Goff at 7th?
Yeah.
The Lions have the 7th best quarterback in the NFC. Maybe they can get to the playoffs. So literally it feels like, if you're the Bears, you're just saying, we just need to do just enough. We can get to the playoffs with our horrific roster if we have more draft picks and we can build this team around Justin Fields.
The NFC South quarterbacks are currently Blaine Gabbert / Kyle Trask, Taysom Hill / maybe Jameis Winston, Matt Ryan, and Sam Darnold / PJ Walker. I mean,
that's Breech's point. That's exactly the point about the Bears. They don't look good on paper, but without Aaron Rodgers in that division, it's wide open.
Okay.
Look at that, Breech. You're changing minds.
Yes.
I mean, okay. If the Bears think that they can make the playoffs, then they should not have traded Khalil Mack.
Why? They have not. Now they have more salary cap space to make the team better. He didn't play last year.
I mean, yeah, we got to see what they do in free agency with that salary cap space they just picked up and what they do with the rest of their offseason. I don't think we can just crush them right away.
Oh, the lemon meteor, which would suck if a lemon hit the earth. Ask, can we give Carson Wentz a Kirby Cousins equivalent nickname? Wilson, get on. By the way, come back at 6 sacks last year, 7 games.
This guy, I don't know why he's all in on Khalil Mack saving this organization.
Me?
Yeah.
I'm not. No, I'm saying that the Bears are admitting publicly via this trade that their intention is to rebuild the roster around Justin Fields.
Okay. That's a lot of
and
words.
You're calling the Bears a contender. Your argument is that they're more of a contender because they traded Khalil Mack, which is just asinine.
Khalil Mack didn't play last year. Now they have $60 million in order to make that team better.
Very bizarre argument.
Breech agrees with me. That's all I need to know.
2-1. It's a good thing having odd amount of people on the podcast.
What do we need to have somebody like?
I don't think Debo disagrees either.
Debo, does Wilson? I mean, this is two bizarre takes in 2 days from Wilson. One, the Geno Smith is better than Carson Wentz, and
Geno Smith is not better than Carson Wentz.
And now the Bears traded Khalil Mack, which makes him more of a contender in the NFC.
No, he's not saying that.
I know.
We both agree the defense has gotten worse, but with the cap space and the extra draft picks, you could possibly make your team better going into next season.
I don't agree with these takes, but I like this version of Wilson.
Thank you, Devo.
It's very confusing. It's like
you know what it is? It's the time of year where I get angry and people start calling me arrogant. That's what it is. Draft season.
It is. Yeah,
I've had it.
Fire Ryan Wilson.
People are start calling you arrogant, but what they don't know is you're just like.
What if the Bears go out and use that money and sign Von Miller and J.C. Jackson and Chandler Jones? Then what, Brinson?
Yeah, what are you going to do then?
Is that defense better? Then did they win the Khalil Mack trade?
Yes. With those 3 players, it is better than with Khalil Mack.
That's
then
what
you
I
will
thought.
have
And Carlton Davis.
And Carlton Davis. And Carlton Banks. Doesn't matter. All the Carltons.
I would guess that the Bears will be a little more pragmatic about their usage of that salary cap space, and that they don't view themselves as an immediate contender, and that they know that they have to get better on the offensive line in order to protect Justin Fields. Like the Bears could be a 3-win team next year. That's not crazy.
They're not going to be a 3-win team. They'll win.
They're going to be a 13-win team.
They'll win between 4 and 13 games.
Yes, I agree with Wilson again.
Wow, what a bold take.
You're welcome.
They'll win between 1 and 17 games.
Devo's so loyal that he won't call your takes ridiculous. That's fine, Devo.
I don't know. You're about to be like, oh, the Commanders would rather have Bailey Zappi than Carson Wentz next year.
Devo's never gonna let that go. He's gonna be talking that Carson Wentz Geno Smith thing at my funeral. He'll be talking. Devo, I wanted to give the eulogy at my funeral. And that's what I want you to leave with. This dummy thought Geno Smith was better than Carson Wentz.
I mean, unbelievable. All right. So yeah, and look, the AFC West, by the way, with Khalil Mack now on the Chargers. I mean, this is I know we always say it. We said this about the NFC West last year, I think, where it's like this is an NFC West arms race. This really does feel like an AFC West arms race. If you're the Raiders, you're looking around like,
what if the AFC West winner just automatically gets a bid to the Super Bowl, and then the other 13 teams have a playoff to see who plays them?
That would be interesting.
We're almost there. I think that the division's so loaded.
The real loser, by the way, is Russ Wilson. He's going to feel like he's in Seattle when he has to face the Chargers twice a year.
That's right. I saw that Florio joked about that. He's like, Russ might have to rescind his no trade clause because you're getting. Of course, you said Khalil Mack sucks and doesn't play, so I don't know what the problem is. Speaking of that weird playoff setup, Breech, let's get into the questions from the
mailbag.
And we'll start with mailbag from Josh, a Jets fan. I'm skipping one ahead. Devo, we'll go back to the first one. Hi guys, love the show. Easy 5 stars. Mailbag question for you. This is from Josh Brown 333 on Apple Podcasts. With all the conversation about AFC versus NFC, and is this the Super Bowl? Really, is the Super Bowl really the best game of the season? What do you think of a change-up where you do a Champions League style draw to find out who the 2 sides of the playoff tree, meaning you could theoretically have any Super Bowl matchup and still have the rules on home field advantage, seating, etc. If this happened, what would be your dream Super Bowl matchup? P.S. Breech, I had a preseason parlay for every division winner, except I couldn't decide on a winner for the AFC North, and instead I put Bengals to come fourth. All of them came in apart from the Bengals, making me feel foolish and missing out on a healthy bit of cash. Maybe next season I'll listen to less of Benson's picks and more of yours.
Ho, ho, ho! Up high, down hard.
That's how you know it's a good mailbag question. If you earn a consensus, like there was no question that was getting a dunk.
I think the point Josh Brown is making is that Benson talks a big game in much the same way he was scaring blank into beating him in that 40-yard dash by yapping in his ear the whole car ride over to dinner, to the point where blank actually believed it was going to happen. And we all knew what was going to happen in the end. And this is how it is with Brinson and his betting tips. You have to listen to Breech when it comes to betting on the Bengals.
No, what the Breech is like some sports line expert who's like putting in minus 300 money line parlays. He's like, I'm 8-0 on my last 8 picks.
That is true.
It's all like
8-0 on my last 8 picks. That's win.
Hey,
win.
This is a true story. Breech bet $40,000 last year and won $100 at the end of the year. Well
Winning
played.
money is the name of the game, guys. Winning money is the name of the game.
It's ridiculous. He's like, I put down $10 on a minus.
So you know what's funny about this question is that unlike you soccer experts, I don't follow the Champions League. So I don't know what the Champions League style draw even is.
Yes,
is it
Breech, you went to the World Cup. You sort of get this.
Yeah, you did go to the World Cup.
No, is that where they do like ping pong? Well, no,
Yeah.
I understand that where they pick, like
Yeah,
What do you think? Do you think the other major soccer organization mirrors at all the one primary soccer organization?
Well, it's one thing when you already had your qualifier for each region has their own World Cup qualifier, and then
you just showed up for the big game.
Right. So the Champions League you have 16 teams qualify for the playoffs, and then they
actually every team in Europe, I think, can conceivably.
It's basically
this is how the group stage works in the World Cup. This is like this is the knockout round. How do they set up the?
There's a group stage in Champions League.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just like the ping pong ball draw.
Yeah, and like your performance in your. I don't know why I'm acting like I know 100%.
I was waiting to see how this plays out. Go ahead.
But it's your performance in your home league that determines if you make it to the Champions League, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So
it's just like it's almost identical to the World Cup in terms of how it sets up.
Well, sort of.
Right, except there's a draw for the quarterfinal round, which there is not in the World Cup because your bracket leads you to your spot.
There's no
in
draw.
The World Cup.
There's no draw except for the initial seedings of the World Cup.
You get put into a pod, and then you advance, and if you advance, you get put into a bracket spot.
So how would this work for the NFL playoffs?
That's the tricky part. So what he's basically saying is,
no, I think all the teams that make the playoffs and they all go into the fishbowl.
Yeah, but the problem is like I guess your 1 seed would not be eligible for the draw.
Well, of course, you have a bye. You're not going to go into the
right,
draw.
and then the 3 seeds would be the home teams, and they would play the 2, 3, 4. The other division winners would be the home teams, and they would play against. You basically pick out of the hat which one of the 3 wild cards they play.
And you could wait the draw like they do, I think, in the NBA. I don't know. I don't think they wait the draw in the Champions League. I don't pay enough attention to it. I just wait to see which names come out of the ping pong ball machine. But you could, look, we could figure out a way to do it. But I do like the idea of the Chiefs playing the Bills in the Super Bowl.
Are they talking soccer? Yes.
We are talking soccer, but only because the question specifically asked about how the NFL playoffs would relate to the Champions League playoffs. If I was going to do it, I think they should. The NFL, obviously, Brinson, you just said the 2 top seeds get a bye. So they're into the next round. We ignore them. The next 6 teams in each conference, I think the 2 seed should pick who they get to play.
Yeah, now we're talking.
And then the 3 seed gets left over, and then obviously 4 gets whoever's left over.
Inside the conference or any team?
Ooh, I mean, I guess I was thinking inside the conference, but any team's even more
here's why
intriguing.
you do any team, because you just talked about how terrible the quarterbacks are in the NFC. If you're in the AFC, you want to play the team in the NFC.
Right. Like if you're the 2 seed, the 7 seed might be Joe Burrow, but in the NFC, the 7 seed,
Jared the Bears.
Goff.
No, it's going to be the Bears.
The Bears, right. The 7 seed playoff bound Bears without Khalil Mack, who just happened to sign 10 different free agents.
Could you imagine what kind of ratings that would get as a TV special where each team has to pick their playoff opponent?
And because we switched to doing that in our fantasy football league where the 4 teams who make the playoffs, whoever's the 1 seed gets to pick their opponent. The idea being it's like, it becomes personal, like if
I was thinking,
that's true. I think that would work because you'd have a chip on your shoulder if you're the visiting team that got picked.
If let's say the Chiefs are the 2 seed and Andy Reid gets there, he's like, we want the Bears, and the Bears were like, screw you, Andy. Like we're the 7 seed, sure, we're scrappy. Or like it was like you pick do you pick the Lions if they make the playoffs as the 7 seed? Do you want to deal with the scrappy Lions team in the playoffs, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, if the alternative is playing the Ravens, then yes, you would like to play the Lions or Bears.
If what?
The alternative is the Ravens.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we open it to all the teams.
I mean, the larger point that I think Josh was trying to get at here is that we have seen this offseason so far, and we sort of referenced it when we're talking about the quarterbacks and Justin Fields and the Bears, a wild disparity between the AFC and the NFC. Like, real quick, let's do a draft. We're going to do a draft. We're not going to hold anybody to this, but we're going to do a draft, like a quick draft of teams that you would want to win
$30, by the way. I forgot about that.
Yeah, you guys should pay me.
What?
Pay me money. Venmo.
Do you owe anyone money that we should send that money to instead?
You guys actually should pay that up. Venmo me, please. And we'll take it out of that too.
Take it out of the tattoo fund.
Like, I guess what I'm getting at is how many. So, all right. If I'll go first, I'll take the Chiefs.
All right,
Wait, what is this a draft?
Yeah, he's not even explaining the rules.
Chiefs win the Super Bowl. I want to see how far. Like, I want to see the comparison of AFC and NFC teams. Basically,
just
making
10 teams,
making up games and calling out.
Well, all right, so like the Bills. So I think.
Hold on, you got the Chiefs. Go ahead, Breech.
I'll take.
You said the Bengals. You're automatically disqualified.
What? They just won the Super Bowl.
I should have taken the Packers first, honestly.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, but then that's an NFC team, so the point would be like ended already.
No, but I think there are two. So there's, screw this game. We're not doing the game. We'll just talk about it. The Packers, the Rams, and the Cowboys, I think, are, and we don't even believe in the Cowboys necessarily because Mike McCarthy, but they have enough talent. Like, they are viable. Like, I think those three teams are in the mix, and maybe the Cardinals, but they have so much drama going on.
They're not in the mix. They haven't won a game in December in 10 years.
But then look over at the AFC where you have Kansas City, Buffalo, Cincinnati. I mean, Las Vegas made the playoffs, and you take them
New England.
over. Yeah,
the Broncos.
Yeah, exactly. The Broncos,
the Ravens.
Chargers,
the Ravens were beat up last year.
Browns. Yes. I mean, that's what I'm saying. There's like
Patriots.
If you each did like 5 picks, I would say 10 of the teams would be AFC and 5 would be NFC if we get to 15.
That would be that's a simpler way to put it.
But you'll have to wait until August to find out when we do our second annual Super Bowl draft.
That's right. The point being is that the AFC looks increasingly more difficult to navigate. Like, the Raiders would be the 5th best team in the NFC.
The 5th, higher,
4th,
at least, right?
Maybe top 5.
Who's 4?
The 49ers,
Packers, the Rams. I would put definitely above them.
Okay, that's 2.
And then
the Cowboys are better than the Raiders.
3.
Probably the Cowboys.
Okay, I need one more.
Maybe the 49ers.
I think there's a good chance the 49ers are better than the.
You haven't even seen the quarterback play. You guys are crazy. Quit hating on Derek Carr.
Well, also Jimmy Garoppolo hasn't been traded yet, so
true.
Stop it. He's not coming back.
I'm just saying.
A lot of disrespect for the playoff bound Philadelphia Eagles. Like, I bet Debo feels really good about his team making playoffs again this year.
Yeah, playoff berth for sure.
Vikings or the Raiders?
Raiders. I don't understand this Kirk Cousins nonsense. I had to come up with a name for Carson Wentz.
Kirby Wentz?
Can't do Kirby again.
Kirby Wentz sounds
Kirby
good.
Wentz?
Kirby's not bad.
The Wentzler?
Like, we see all these teams getting better in the A. Like, who got better in the NFC? There's a lot to still happen, but just like,
I mean,
go ahead and say it, Debo. Washington got better. Am I right?
Yes.
I mean, that's the thing is, like, we're like laughing at Kirk. I mean, Kirk. Oh, that's it. Kirk Wentz.
Kirk Wentz. There it is.
We're laughing at Carson Wentz, but I mean,
what?
I mean, they could make the playoffs. It's the NFC.
Well, yes, they could make the playoffs. That's right.
Like, it would be shocking if more than one team.
Washington is better than Chicago. I will grant you that as we sit here.
Thank you. By the way, Mike Florio believes that firmly, like, he's doubled and tripled and quadrupled down on that Tom Brady will be the week 1 starter for the San Francisco 49ers in 2022.
Wow, that's soon.
Yeah. He thinks that Tom Brady is, if anybody's saying Green Bay in the chat, we definitely think Green Bay is really good.
Yeah.
Green Bay should probably be the Super Bowl favorite because they're in the NFC and have Aaron Rodgers, and that division is terrible.
Yeah,
and like,
I don't disagree with that.
Like, right now, their only real obstacle for getting out of the, their only real obstacle for getting out of the conference is the Rams.
Well, you just said Dallas.
I mean, Dallas could beat them, I guess. Okay, let's take a break. When we come back, more mailbag questions.
What's your favorite scary movie?
You're all in danger. So what's our next move?
Talk to an expert.
There's certain rules to surviving. Killer's motive is always connected to the past.
Sid, do you have a gun?
I'm Sydney Prescott. Of course I have a gun.
Scream. I'll be right back.
He's dead.
Rated R.
All right, so more mailbag questions. People who are People who are listening to the podcast can't hear what that commercial was, but man, I didn't realize is that a new Scream? Or is that an old? Scream?
It is a new Scream. It came out in January, and actually, you should see it, Brinson.
Have you watched it? I gotta tell you, Scream. It scares me.
Brinson, I could see he doesn't like roller coasters. He doesn't like scary movies. That would be my guess.
Least surprising thing ever.
I hate scary movies. I don't watch scary movies.
Since you've already went into this territory, Brinson, I've never been more on edge in a movie theater than seeing this Scream. I had never seen Scream.
You've never seen any of the old ones?
But then I went back and rewatched the old ones at my apartment, and yeah, great movie. Watch Paramount Plus.
Ooh,
so wait, you saw this in the movie theater, the new one?
Yeah,
it's scary, man.
And you liked it?
I liked it. It made me feel a certain type of way, but
are you a scary movie person? Because
not necessarily.
I do
Debo got scared.
Like
oh my god!
Yeah, I do not like scary movies.
I don't mind scary movies, but what
I do like is Scary Movie. The
mockumentary,
the comedy
The only movie that scared me legitimately was the one in the woods. What was that one from 1999?
The Blair Witch Project.
Blair Witch Project. Have you seen that, Debo?
Yeah. No, I haven't seen
Wentz
that
Project.
Yeah, do not see the Carson Wentz Project.
I've been watching the Screams and the Final Destinations.
Oh, I love Final Destinations. Have you seen the one where they're on the spaceship one?
No, I haven't seen that yet.
That's a good one too. Those are good. All right, back to
check it out.
When the original Scream came out, that was scary as hell the first time you watched it.
So soft.
Oh my god,
Matthew Lillard scared you. Come on now,
don't spoil it.
Jamie Kennedy.
Seriously,
Jamie Kennedy scared you? What a great throwback.
All right, let's get to some more mailbag questions. Hey, super. This is from this is awesome. I love this one so much. From Ryan Broneal via Apple Podcast. Hey, I missed the whole season is the title. Hey, super friends. I just got back from an extended deployment on a submarine.
Man.
I left first of all, thank you for your service. I left in mid-August and didn't get back until March. Email communications are always limited, and watching any kind of video from the outside world is impossible. Needless to say, I missed the entire 2021 NFL season.
Hey, let me interrupt you quickly. Let me just say this. How do you go about being on a submarine? Because I think I love the idea of no email communication, people leaving me alone 4 or 5 months.
So I would like to
Wilson's volunteering right now.
A pick 6 submarine. Debo would last 2 weeks.
I was gonna say the other thing too is we just take for granted Wi-Fi and the ability to stream. I'm walking my dog around the neighborhood and I'm streaming college basketball game, March Madness games.
Actually, I said Debo, you wouldn't last 2 hours without Twitter. I take that back. Yes,
I would. I wouldn't be. When I say I would be fine on a submarine, I mean I would not be fine in the sense of having to do the work required that gets you onto a submarine.
No, this is like a leisure submarine.
But if I was a luxury submarine,
I don't think this works like a cruise ship, Ryan. I don't think there's leisure submarines.
All right, I'm out.
But that's what I was saying. If you were all right, Brinson, you have to be on a submarine for August to March and limited communication. I would be okay if it were a luxury submarine. I would be okay with that. I would not. I am too soft to be on an actual submarine doing the work required of someone who is deployed on a submarine. I'm too soft for that. I'm probably too old at this point. Can you even?
No, you can be in your 40s on a submarine.
Yeah, but you would be you wouldn't be
you'd be an important person on the submarine, not
right. Well, that's the other thing.
Not mopping the floors or whatever.
Yeah. But anyway, I think the whole idea. Again, it's just fascinating.
But you're claustrophobic as well, right? Because I think their quarters are extremely tight.
Yes,
but to your point, thank you, Ryan Broneal, for doing your part, and hopefully you weren't a Bengals fan.
I also have to figure out that if you're on a submarine, they don't want they don't want you tweeting oh, just passed.
Yeah, you would
just
be the
Malta,
just past the trench. Hey, here's Hey, I just put my geotags on.
That would be you, 100%.
Yeah, that's probably. So continuing on this question before we so rudely interrupted him with talks of luxury submarines. If you could sum up the season in just a few sentences each, how would you do it? P.S. I'm truly sorry for Breech that I missed the meteoric rise of the Bengals. And also, imagine that. Like, you come out of the submarine, you're like, the Bengals did what?
How long was I down there?
What? What?
If I spent 7 months in a submarine and came up and somebody told me the Bengals were in the Super Bowl, I would be convinced that I had just been involved in the biggest episode of Punk'd ever, and that Ashton Kutcher was going to come over and hit me over the head with a baseball
Breech,
bat.
let me. I want you to go first, but I want to ask you this before you give your 2 sentences of how you would explain the season. Let's say you were on the submarine, you came up in March, and the first thing your sister told you was the Bengals went to the Super Bowl. Now, would you want to know how the Super Bowl ended, or would you watch all 17 games and find out for yourself, or would you want to know ahead of time before you potentially wasted, 4 days of your life trying to get through all those games?
Well, first of all, I would assume like a family member died and that she was trying to make that positive by, let him down slowly,
right?
By starting me off with, oh yeah, but the Bengals made the Super Bowl, but really that's a lie. And she would tell me that at the end. So I wouldn't believe it. And I wouldn't believe any of it until I would have to watch every game to know what happened in the Super Bowl. So otherwise I wouldn't believe it. I just simply would not believe it. I would go back in the submarine for 7 more months to see if they get to the next Super Bowl.
I think the problem is but once you got out, it would be virtually impossible to actually watch all those games without finding out the outcome of the Super. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but if you say
you go to Game Pass and you just, it doesn't mention the future.
He can say on Twitter.
I just mean you would run in. I mean, you would have to isolate yourself.
I mean, you've already been isolated for 7 months on a submarine. I don't think another week of just watching 20 games is going to be difficult.
I wonder how many games you get into before you would have to cheat, because there'd be points that season, like when you lost to the
Bears in week 2. I'd be like, this team is down 20-3, 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter against the Chicago Bears, who we've been railing against this whole podcast. There's no way they got to the Super Bowl. Why are you punking me, Ashton?
I was going to say how long you would last. All right. Do you want to go first, Breech, with your sentences to explain the season?
I mean,
my sentence would just be who they think gonna beat them Bengals, and then the person would be like, "What is wrong with you? Go back to Cincinnati."
Then I would say the Rams. That's who
the Rams is the answer. That's right.
I think one of the sentences has to be Joe Burrow magically leads the Bengals to the Super Bowl, but then Matthew Stafford, traded to the Rams and soon to be Hall of Famer, takes him down with an incredible last-minute drive. I mean,
a lot happened too. Like last summer, I was under the impression Aaron Rodgers wasn't going to come back,
but he said he started in August, so he knew Rodgers was coming back by then. Before
this is what my sentence would be: Carson Wentz traded to Colts, help Steelers get into the playoffs. That would be mine.
I mean, it would be. I mean, I guess when you sum up the season, you are inherently just going to mention. I just think you would focus on the Super Bowl because the pairing one was so unlikely. No one had Rams Bengals before the season. Plenty of people had the Rams. Nobody had the Rams.
And not even me, and I love the Rams and the Bengals.
Yeah. You didn't even pick the Bengals to win the division, even though the previous mailbag question indicated that you might have. I just think that the pairing and the combination of the quarterbacks is the biggest story by far.
Jared.
You might want to throw in Tom Brady retired.
But that was after. I mean, he may have been off the submarine by the time that came.
It wasn't after March. It's in February, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, you'd probably throw that in.
Who they lose to? The Rams? They lost to the Rams.
Yeah.
Matthew Stafford beats Tom Brady to earn trip to Super Bowl. That's a sentence you never thought you would say.
Matthew Stafford takes down Tom Brady in route to beating Bengals in Super Bowl.
Matthew Stafford ends Tom Brady's career.
That's a Breechian headline.
That is a Breechian headline. Any other sentences to sum it up?
Who was the best player non-quarterback last year? I mean, you could say Deebo Samuel went crazy, Jonathan Taylor went crazy. Things that maybe
Cooper Kupp, Jonathan Taylor. Yeah, Cooper Kupp, Jonathan Taylor have historic seasons.
Who's the best defensive player? Trevon Diggs had 9 interceptions or whatever. I mean, just crazy stuff.
A lot of stuff.
Who's the best? Oh, Evan McPherson's the best. He supplanted Justin Tucker as the best kicker on the planet.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty wild season. And
yeah, I don't know. Let's say you're coming up like Mr.
I was
Bodine.
sort of taking it as like you have two sentences, or like one.
It's hard to put in two sentences, but
you would have to write a song like "We Didn't Start the Fire," except about the 2021 season.
Fire. How many games, Brinson, are you watching? If you come up, I don't know if I'm watching any game. There's just too much to the Steelers. Once I see that Ben Roethlisberger's throwing 85 passes a game for 100 yards. I don't know if I'm watching any game.
I mean, I would have gone with "End of the World" as you know it, and I feel fine. But sure, if you want to go with "We Didn't Start the Fire," go for it.
I'll go with "Don't Worry, Be Happy" because I'm an optimist.
That's not. I think you're missing the point.
Maybe, but I am.
And we have our guy Jacob in the comments section mentioning Justin Tucker at a 66-yard field goal.
Oh yeah, to beat the Lions.
I wouldn't believe that either.
Big Ben retired. I mean, if I wouldn't even give this guy Big Ben a mention, it's Hall of Fame.
Yeah, but they thought that was going to happen.
Second ballot Hall of Fame quarterback retires, and we don't even mention it.
Oh, he's not a first ballot according to you.
Yeah.
That's a good question, though.
That's a great question. Yeah.
Thank you for.
Again,
hopefully,
Joe Burrow is the only quarterback in the AFC North who has started a Super Bowl.
Did he win it?
That's wild.
We didn't mention that.
All right, for the mailbag. This is from Gaza Init via Apple Podcast from Great Britain. Hello from Southampton in the UK. This is my favorite podcast. Thank you. Favorite with you too. Will it still be running in 9 to 10 years time so that we can hear Brinson shove it in Wilson's face when Matthew Stafford gets into the Hall of Fame?
If it takes 10 years and something's gone horribly wrong in the Brinson timeline of Hall of Fameness for Matthew Stafford, I would imagine.
I mean, he plays 5 more years, and then 5 years he's eligible.
Years.
I bet he plays 4 more years at least.
I can see him playing 5 more years.
Gaza,
never playing 5 more years wouldn't be weird.
Gaza, if I'm here in 10 years, Brinson's just stuff a whole bunch of things in my face.
I mean, I would.
Brinson will be here in 10 years. Brinson, don't be offended by this, but if you were an insect, you would be a cockroach. You're going to be hosting this podcast until the end of existence. If there might be a nuclear war, we don't know, but if there's one thing that happens after that, it'll be Brinson hosting a podcast.
Yeah, I mean, we've been hosting a podcast in some form for 10 years. We haven't been hosting a podcast.
More than that, 2008.
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing this forever, but we haven't been doing it daily. Like the daily thing is definitely a different twist.
And for the longest time, we didn't do video, so I didn't have to look at you ugly guys so often. No,
for a long time, we didn't even have Skype. You just did it over where you had Skype, but it did not video Skype.
And our mouths would move, but not with our words.
Yeah, I mean,
this dummy Breech.
This is a tough one because I think if I get what I'll sign for still doing this in 10 years because that means that we're still employed and still getting paid to talk about sport like football for a living.
Hey, and CBS has a contract with the NFL for at least 10 more years, which I think ups the chances of you still being here.
It's just the idea of I struggle to even think about having to get through July.
Brinson's already burned out on hosting a daily podcast.
The idea of doing it for 10 more years is
10 years from now. I mean,
what if Debo's still producing in 10 years?
Well, he will be doing it in spirit only because he will be long gone from this earth.
And what's funny about the timeline of this question is that I think all of us just celebrated our 10th anniversary at CBS in the past 12 months.
Yeah, I think I'm 11 now. 11 or 12.
I just did some quick math. We over the past 2 years, we've averaged 411 episodes per year times 10, 4,100 episodes. The average episode is 52 minutes, 213,720 minutes of podcasting.
My God.
Imagine what we could have learned in that time, the amount of schooling we could have, the degrees we could have.
You could be a doctor curing cancer.
Could have cured cancer or talk to you idiots about Matthew Stafford's Hall of Fame chances.
Yeah. Ryan, rank the likelihood or who would leave the podcast first and then who would leave it last in order.
Oh, well, Debo, you're first because you're an up-and-comer. You're younger. You're ambitious.
2 weeks. That's 2 weeks from now after your BS yesterday.
Nailed it.
Sadly,
what if that's the straw that breaks the camel's back with Debo? Then I call Geno Smith better.
I hope HR is working on a Friday because they got some notes from me yesterday.
not Benson being late, chronically late to every podcast or whatever. It's the Geno Smith, Carson Wentz hate. So Debo's first, and I think we can all agree on that. I wonder if Breech might be second. Breech or Brinson might be second.
Yeah, that's probably right.
Just depends on the other opportunity.
What would happen is I would threaten to leave the podcast for a different job if I don't get like X, X, and X.
Again, yes, that's right.
And then they wouldn't give it to me, and then I would have to call the bluff and leave the podcast. And so that's how I would leave the podcast. Breech would like slide out the back door where he's like, it'd be like sort of like Swimmy Magoo, where it's like out of nowhere, Breech is like, I've taken a job as the editor of Cincinnati Today, a lifestyle magazine about
Cincinnati Cats Today.
Yeah, like Cincinnati Cat Magazine or something like that.
What did Sean do? He texted you guys and said, "Hey guys, we need to talk."
We thought he was pregnant.
We need to talk.
Yeah, what are you doing, man? You're supposedly a grown man. I mean,
right?
Texting
emo Sean.
Breech has been hired as the executive vice president of the Bengals.
No,
that's the text I would send you guys.
Bengals fan club, maybe. Not
and then Wilson just does. Wilson is
look, my kids. Here's the thing: my kids will be out of school, and this will be like beer money for me. It'll be perfect. Get these friggin' kids out of my house, and then
you're gonna die as the junior draft analyst.
It'll either be this or I have to be a Walmart greeter. So I think I'd rather do this.
Yeah,
as an old person.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I ain't going anywhere.
That's right. Wilson and Robbie will be hosting with Wilson in like 15 years, telling him about how
your dad, Robbie, when he had those hair plugs.
All right, let's see.
Did we answer the question? Right. Oh yeah, we did answer the question.
Yeah. Cool and honest show. Thanks. Coinbase is the worst. Coinbase is kind of a pain in the butt.
What is that?
Crypto.
Sorry. Go ahead. As soon as I asked, I regretted it.
Hi, I love the podcast and the tone you carry amongst yourselves, but also on topics. It feels authentic and that your true opinion shines through. Except when Wilson's talking about Carson Wentz. I have two different questions you can choose which one you prefer. One football related and one less football related. We'll answer them both. Football related. Can you explain how teams make money and what small market teams mean? I thought all money went into one pool and then shared 32 ways. I often hear that the Giants are a large market team, but how does that benefit them? And vice versa with small market, i.e. Green Bay or Jacksonville. And B, less football related. If you could choose any other job related to football, what would it be? I.e. GM of X team, play-by-play analyst on a network, Brinson's boss, you can fire him, etc. Best, Nikolai from Denmark in Europe. Real Europe.
Up high, down hard.
We got to give a dunk for firing me.
So, Breech, do you know the answer to A? I know that they do pull all the money. I do the big market teams like the Cowboys, for example, don't like the revenue sharing part of it. But
yes, Breech. So go ahead.
I think a lot of the confusion is because like a sport like baseball, there's such a big difference between a small market team and a big market team because the big market teams spend way more money on players.
But since salary cap,
salary cap in football.
Also, I would just say too that like in baseball, the Dodgers can go out and sign a contract with an RSN, like a Fox Sports LA or whatever. And that's their contract and that's their money that they're getting to the Dodgers. And that helps to create the differences between small market and large market teams in terms of the money they have to spend in a salary cap-less sport.
And what Brent is saying is that the Dodgers earn a ton more TV money than a team like the Reds.
In football, the NFL league office negotiates a deal or deals with CBS, and there's like there's an ownership committee that's on the NFL league office does it, but the owners do it too. The owners have a television committee, and they work on these deals, and they negotiate with CBS, NBC, Fox, etc. And all of that money goes into one giant pool and then is split amongst the teams.
Kitty, if you will.
A kitty, yeah.
So basically the NFL has revenue sharing and each team gets a check for like $270 million each year that comes out of the media rights, that comes out of the ticket sales,
gambling,
that comes out of gambling, that comes out of licensed NFL stuff. And so that is why each team has a baseline that's the same. And so there's not a huge difference between small market and big market there, but there is a big difference in the sense that the bigger market teams have a little bit more leverage when they're trying to get free agents because, if you're in New York, you can tell Russell Wilson, look, you're going to be able to get so many new companies that want to advertise with you. You're going to make bank as far as endorsements. Whereas if you sign in Cincinnati or Jacksonville, you're not going to have the same opportunities as a player that you would in a city like New York. And the Brinson's point in the TV stuff, each of the teams get to make their own preseason TV deals. Yes. And if you're a team in New York, you're going to be able to charge a lot more money than Jacksonville can for their TV deals. So if you're in a big market, there's more opportunities for money. There's not a lot in the NFL, a huge difference between big market and small market, but there is enough that the big market teams are pulling. The Cowboys are printing their own money.
Well, so for Dallas, for instance, and Dallas is, not just a big market, but they're the Cowboys, right? I mean, like America's team, they've sold, you get to sell naming rights to your stadium. And they sold naming rights to the Star, their practice facility in Frisco. And it's like I think it's Ford who does it. But like all those things you're able to do in a different way because you can, because you're because you're able to generate more revenue that you can spend with your team. Right?
Yes. So that is not a huge difference, but still, there's enough that free agent might pick a big market team just because a few more endorsement opportunities, and the big market teams are usually pulling in a little bit more money than the small market teams.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to the next question. NFL Redraft. I love the recent episode with Wilson, Brady Quinn, and Pete Prisco. Really? Thanks a lot for that backhanded compliment of me. I appreciate that. I love the recent episode. It had this arguing with each other about topics that they clearly had a ton of knowledge about, bringing up the knocks on current quarterbacks as well as future quarterbacks. They would often talk over each other, but it was clear they were passionate about what they were saying. And when they talked about the transition from college to the NFL, it was quite informative. I had no idea there were that many differences in the rules and layout and even ball texture. My question is, if you could bring one rule to the NFL from college football and send one NFL rule to college football, which rules would that be? For me, it would be 3-yard illegal man downfield from college and the 2 feet in bounds from the NFL.
I actually like the 3-yard illegal man downfield from college to the NFL because I hate when they call illegal man downfield. It feels like an advantage for the offense. It's just a fat guy losing track of where he is on the field. In terms of going the other way, I would keep the clock running. The college football games take so long. I like the idea. No, don't stop the clock after first downs. Just keep the clock going. The 1 foot inbounds thing is fine. I do wish the rules were closer to each other. I wish they used the same football so we wouldn't have conversations about Jamar Chase and, he can't see the ball without the stripe, or quarterbacks not used to holding the bigger football. I'd be okay with that too. But I think more than anything, these college football games just take too long. Like I can't sit there for 4.5 hours. I would like it to be a sub 3-hour game. Quit stopping the clock every 2 seconds.
I agree with Wilson. Brinson just got kicked out because apparently he quit, and we are now host the podcast. Wilson,
I lost the bet. Debo actually did not quit first.
I do agree with your clock stoppage rule, so I'm not going to steal it. I'm going to say the NFL rule I want to see in college is that players have to be downed by contact. Nothing's more annoying in college. A guy catches a pass, slips and falls, and he's down because he's down, or they make a diving catch and they can't get up and run. So I would like to see the NFL rule that a player has to be touched to be declared down in college. And then college NFL, I think I want the flip of what our questioner asks. I want the NFL to have 1 foot in bounds because I think we would see some crazy catches.
These guys are such freakishly good athletes. At least make it a little difficult for them.
Fine, Wilson. Then I want to see wider hashtags, or wider hash marks.
Hashtags.
Get out of here.
Hashtags. What is wrong with you?
I would like either go 2 feet down in college or 1 foot down in the NFL. Just make
it universal no matter which way.
The same for both sports.
That's what I was getting at when you bonked out to get a drink of water. That I think
don't know what happened. My Chrome didn't even crash. It was just like StreamYard. It even said it's not your fault.
It's not your fault, Will.
I think there needs to be more uniformity in the rules, just because it makes it easier to. I think Jamar Chase won't have to worry about the stripes on the football, and the football is actually slightly smaller with the college as opposed to NFL. But then again, if only 1% of these guys go in the NFL, I understand the rules on some level. But yeah, I don't think I want 1 foot down in the NFL. I like the fact that it has to be. These guys they're insanely good athletes, but faster games for college. I'm fine with the illegal man downfield. Hell, man, let the offensive lineman get 10 yards downfield. I mean, how often does that affect the play of a game? They're not outrunning slot receivers and running backs down the field anyway. Open it up.
But the hash marks thing real quick, I just want to see
hashtags. Go ahead.
With the hashtags, I feel like if you widen the hash marks in the NFL like they are in college, make the field goals. Why should the college kickers be trying more difficult field goals from wider angles? Make it harder on the NFL kickers.
That's weird too. I agree. Oh, let me ask you this, Breech. How much is there a discernible difference in kicking in college football as opposed to NFL football?
I mean, we heard Brady talking about it, about the throwing the ball for quarterbacks because they're a slightly different size. And it's the same thing with kicking it because that changes the size of the sweet spot. I would say an NFL football is harder to kick than a college football. And plus, as we've heard Pat McAfee talk about, there's K-balls in the NFL, which are brand new footballs, and brand new footballs are very difficult to kick. But in college, there are no K-balls. The kickers get to beat in their footballs, make them soft, and it makes them a lot easier to kick. You do not get to do that in the NFL. So definitely a little bit more difficult to kick in the NFL.
Look at that. Fun fact.
You know what rule I would like to see implemented from college to the pros?
NC State automatically wins every football game.
What'd you say? Sorry.
NC State wins every football game automatically.
Yeah, that would be nice. NC State becomes the Patriots.
Go ahead.
I have a trivia question for you guys, real quick. Pete Carroll was the defensive coordinator at NC State from 1980 to 1982. Do you know where he left to take the job for the same position of DC in 1983?
I just see you're paying attention now. Dude.
He was in the NFL by like 85. So it's not the NFL because I'm guessing we're making fun of NC State here.
Western Michigan.
I'll give you a million guesses.
It's a high school team.
It's a college team.
It's a high school team.
Is it where
a D3 team?
Is it where Woody Harrelson and John Breech kicked
Hanover?
Is it Hanover?
He left NC State to take a job at Pacific, a powerhouse in 1983.
What a slap in the face.
He's from San Francisco. I'm sure there's a reason why.
Pacific's down south, isn't it? Isn't it Southern California? Like it matters. It doesn't matter where it is.
He saw a greater opportunity at Pacific than NC State.
And he was right. That's the sad part. But anyway, I interrupt you, Brinson. You said centralized replay. I think that's actually you're right about. It feels like
you know what? Screw you, Debo.
Here we go.
I got some trivia for you. Do you know where Pete Carroll went to college?
Pacific. Next question.
He could be back to his alma mater. That is perfectly acceptable.
That's great. Like you could go, like if you get an offer at Hanover or Alabama, like it doesn't matter.
If I'm the defensive coordinator at Alabama, I'm not going back to Hanover.
Breech almost. No, I'm not going to say it.
Breech gets a special teams coordinator offer at Hanover and Florida. Which one's he taking?
Right.
You take
good answer. It's like my 10-year-old.
No. It's fine to go back and take the defensive coordinator job at your
from Division I to Pacific. Stop it.
He graduated college from Pacific.
No, you told us that part.
And became a graduate assistant at Pacific for 3 years. Left for like 5 years, and then I'm assuming his old coach offered him the job back, and he returned.
But if your job is to make it to the highest levels of football, you don't go to Division I ACC school and then go to Pacific just because your coach asked you to come and coach the defense.
Also, hold on. I think there's
It would have to get better because it's only getting worse.
And then he went from Pacific to the NFL.
Monty Kiffin left NC State as the head coach. I think he was probably fired by NC State in 82. And that's when Pete Carroll. Yeah. Monty Kiffin was fired as the head coach of NC State. He had hired Pete Carroll as his DC. He gets fired. And so Pete Carroll goes back and takes a job at Pacific. This is very basic and standard football practices. It's not like Pete Carroll was like, oh, I got a Pacific job. Peace, NC State.
That sounds like what it was like.
Debo has fabricated a lie.
I don't know. I think Debo's right. Yeah.
I might write a story about this.
No, there's 100% chance you won't do that.
Yeah,
that's safe.
No chance.
But anyway, to your point, you were actually making a good point before you got sidetracked by Debo's
centralized replay.
By Debo's North Carolina State slander.
Centralized replay would be nice to see in the NFL. Except in this case, we would announce it
and no targeting.
There was centralized replay, and when you implemented it, everyone would be aware of it.
Or do you want targeting in the NFL? They sort of have it.
I wish they would handle it the way they do in college, to be perfectly honest.
I feel like college football, how often do they misplay? I think their miss rate is much lower than the NFL's in terms of calls, right?
Well, the targeting is
just in general,
in the NFL. The targeting is reviewable in college.
Yeah.
Like that's how, and I'm not saying throw people out, but if you're going to throw a 15-yard flag for hit on a defenseless player, and they did that with a centralized replay, didn't they, in the playoffs once? They were like, it was like, the ruling on the field is that he was not defenseless. It was like, what?
They hated the idea of giving Riveron more work, so they just scrapped it.
That's right. Riveron got fired, by the way. It's Walt Anderson.
Yeah, he's now, by the way, defensive coordinator Pacific.
Up high, down hard.
All right.
I'm going to throw in one question from the live chat.
What 3 players in their prime from the 1990s would you like to see playing in the current NFL?
Let's see, 90s.
Man, this is a good one. So I would think that Deion Sanders would be my first choice.
Yeah, I mean, he was 80s and 90s, but I'll give you that.
I'll go Jerry Rice. It's like he put up such huge receiving numbers in a decade where all the rules were against receivers, and I would love to see what he could do nowadays.
There's another, I think, fairly obvious one that I would pick in Barry Sanders.
Oh,
yeah, he was more 80s than 90s, I think, wasn't he? What did he retire?
He was 90s.
He's 90s.
Okay.
It was 88 or 89 draft.
He was 89 draft, so he played 1 year in the 90s or 80s.
Yeah, I'm looking at some names here to refresh my memory. Like Emmitt Smith, I wonder how good he'd be. I mean, he'd probably be really good, but I feel like a different era. John Elway was 80s and 90s. Like John Elway's like perfect. He and Brett Favre.
Elway's a great answer. Yeah.
He and Brett Favre would be awesome because they fit into exactly all that. They're all Josh Allen before Josh Allen was.
Yeah, Favre and Elway would be incredible in today's NFL. Steve Young.
Yeah, even though he ran off Joe Montana.
I mean, Marino.
Yeah,
Marino was drafted.
Marino's more 80s, I feel like.
One of our commenters, Dominic, mentions Randall Cunningham. I like that idea because the coaches nowadays are a lot better knowing how to utilize a player like Randall Cunningham. I bet he would crush it.
Philadelphia slight? What are you saying, Breech? That's disrespectful.
I'm just saying that that's the whole entire NFL slight. The whole entire NFL. They don't. NFL did not embrace quarterbacks who could run and throw
and punt.
Nice. Well done.
Despite his slander of my favorite team, I will throw out Reggie White.
Reggie White,
Eagle of all time. I think is he more 90s than 80s?
Yeah, I think he fits both. He was that good. He was a reverend, right?
Mid 80s. He started
Minister of
Defense. There it is. I can never. That's a great nickname.
Marshall Faulk was really more 2000s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when I think he was drafted 99, maybe a little earlier.
If I were picking 3, I would say Deion, Barry, and Elway. Just sort of mix up the positions.
Sorry, Breech, your first pick got
I'm taking Jerry Rice, Randall Cunningham, and Bruce Smith. Boom.
All good.
Those work.
I didn't take any Bengals players. You know why? Because the Bengals were the worst team ever in the 90s.
And this is actually a related question.
Jeff, I would take Jeff Blake. Go ahead.
Kajana Carter.
For the one play?
Jim Breech.
Stubborn Hill in the chat asked, explain to a Brit why the Cowboys are quote unquote America's team. This actually goes back to the 90s. Really, is that
goes back to the 70s.
Yeah, 70s.
They're off 2 decades.
Sure. Yeah,
but yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, like when we were kids, like I mean, I guess it was the 70s because Hank Stram was the guy, but it's related. It relates
Landry.
to
Tex Stram and Tom Landry, not Hank Stram.
Oh yeah, that's what I meant. It relates to. I'm saying like for our generation,
you'll get one right here. Keep going.
The Cowboys winning 3 Super Bowls in a span of 5 years or whatever it was, right? Like they were the most popular team in the country by far. Like you will find people our age who are Cowboys fans, even though they had like no connection to Dallas or any like previous connection to the Cowboys. Like their parents were fans of them, but it's sort of similar to the Yankees and how they were, just like how they were just marketed to America, right? I mean, and that's sort of why they became America's team.
So Breech is right. It started in the 70s with John Facenda, who used to do the voiceovers for the NFL films. I'm just Googling it real quick. The nickname was spoken into existence in that highlight film by the legendary voice of NFL films, John Facenda, the first Cowboys game of the 79th season, which was nationally televised, of course. CBS broadcast used the America's team nickname, and it said stuck. So
and that was, 70s was also when the NFL kind of blew up in this country. And you look at that decade, the Cowboys went to 5 Super Bowls in the 70s. And that's also why I'm sure Wilson is a Steelers fan, because that was the AFC team that was going to the Super Bowl every year. So a lot of the people that are 45 and older are Cowboys or Steelers fans.
Yes.
And then obviously the Cowboys had another heyday in the 90s that Brinson just mentioned. And then that gets another generation. Now you just have Cowboys fans everywhere.
My point was that it relates to these. We were talking about players in the 90s, like Emmitt Smith, Troy Aikman, and Michael Irvin were like probably the three of the most famous players from the 90s because of the Cowboys. And at that time, every time the Cowboys would win, you still heard they're America's team, because they had successfully embroidered that in everyone's brains.
Right. Yep.
So there you go.
Brainwashed you into being a Cowboys
fan.
Brainwashed
everybody to be Cowboys fans, basically.
That is how I became BreechBot 3000.
Yeah,
Cowboys are my pick for the 2022 Super Bowl.
And on that note, let's get out of here. Hope everybody's having a great Monday if you're listening, and hope everyone has a great Friday. A lot of good questions, as always. For Wilson and Breech, I am Brinson. We will see you guys